A big hello and welcome. It's Kate from Zen Stitching, and I'm super excited that you're here with me today for another one of our Artists Series chats for the Making Zen Online Retreat. Today we're joined by Blair from Wisecraft Handmade, and Blair is a seasoned Making Zenner, shall we say. And so I'm super delighted that you're here to have another fabulous conversation.
I know, me too. Me too.
Yeah, and I've been so excited that I just wanted to dive in the deep end even before the recording button had been pressed. So I've been holding on to all of my questions.
I know it's hard to resist just jumping right in when we've got um, fun stuff to chat about.
I know, well, that's right.
Yeah.
And what's really fun is, well, just knowing because we've had many conversations, and I always love connecting with you and hearing what you're up to and what you're doing next. And I follow you on Instagram, so I see that you're up to all kinds of great things. So I'm looking forward to diving in the deep end. Um, for people who may be meeting you for the first time, Blair, would you like to share a little bit about yourself and what makes you sing?
Sure. So I am located in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I've been a quilt maker for probably 26 years.
Since before you were
And
born.
yeah, exactly. I'm only 12. But I really enjoy quilt making. And a few years ago, wanting to add some handwork to my quilts and through embroidery and things like that, I stumbled upon this vintage technique called chicken scratch embroidery. That's what it's called in the US. It goes by different names in different places all over the world in some variation, but fell really down a big rabbit hole about what this hand embroidery was all about. And so now I've just combined my two loves of chicken scratch embroidery and quilt making. So I'm an educator. I've written two books. I teach online classes, and I'm very excited to be an instructor with Making Zen again this year.
And I'm so thrilled too. And I love hearing that you've combined your interest of quilts and your interest of the chicken scratch, which is fascinating to know that it is called different things in different countries. I had no idea.
Yeah. So right now I'm actually doing a block of the month that's all chicken scratch. It's a quilt, and we started it, I guess, 2 months ago, a month ago. Um, and so we meet on Zoom, and we've got people from Australia, we've got people from all over, and I have enjoyed. Um, they sort of do a little research in their area and see if they can find what it's called there and things like that. But it's been called, in addition to chicken scratch embroidery, it's been called depression lace, Amish lace, snowflake embroidery. There's a lot of different names, and um, what I think is really interesting about it is that it's a very kind of utilitarian type of embroidery. It's not fussy, it's not complicated. It's always done on gingham, and I actually have a little gingham apron here that I bought a while back at an antique store to kind of show you what it is. So this is just a gingham apron, and I bet you guys have probably seen this sort of thing in an antique store or a vintage shop. But it's just embroidery stitches. Um, it's usually a combination of just some simple embroidery stitches and some simple weaving through those embroidery stitches, but it just changes how the gingham looks, which I
Yes,
think is so pretty. It almost looks like you've laid lace over the gingham.
it's fascinating to see.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if it's because I'm seeing it through the screen as well, but the complete contrast in colors of where the white stitching is compared with where I'm guessing it's a red or a darker
it's
orange.
like an orange. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it
it's all really dependent on where you like A, if you use darker light colored embroidery thread, and then B, which of the gingham squares you add that darker light embroidery thread to.
Yeah.
So, it's like the white thread here is covering up the dark orange gingham squares, and that's what's giving it like this lighter effect. And then the orange is stitched, I think this is stitched in like the medium colored gingham square. So, with gingham, you have a light, you have a dark square, and then you have the medium squares where it's kind of the two colors woven through that square. So the orange is stitched in the medium gingham squares. So it kind of darkens everything in that section there, which I just think it's so cool.
Yeah,
It's so fun.
totally. And
Yeah.
just thinking about, like you say, the choice of color and then the choice of color and the placement on the gingham itself will really change up the pattern. So you could have a lot of fun playing with one particular design, different colored threads, different placements, and you're going to end up with a multitude of different results.
You really do. Just taking like the little pattern motif itself and just sliding it to and starting in a different gingham square color creates an entirely different look.
Have you played
It's
around with that?
Yeah, I have because that's fun. Yeah. So in the block of the month that we're doing right now, we stitch our motifs in little 8.5-inch square pieces of gingham, but we do each little motif each month. We stitch it 2 times. So it gives you a chance to change your starting square color or move or change your thread colors, but keep it in the same gingham square color. So yeah, and that was direct feedback from when I did my first chicken scratch embroidery block of the month back in 2021. I asked everybody, what can we do? How can we make this more fun? And they were like, the worst part was that I would stitch it so fast that I'd be done for the whole month. And so this time I'm like, so great. Well, now we can stitch them twice.
But twice the homework.
That's right. So everybody's having fun doing just exactly that, like making little tweaks. I made the sample quilt back months ago, and now I'm restitching those
Oh,
blocks.
yeah.
Here's an example of one of the blocks that we did. Um, so this is just one color of variegated thread, and I'm doing a dark version of the quilt. So this is like a linen cotton, like an Essex, Robert Kaufman Essex linen in a licorice colorway. So that's just all one color. So I'm just curious what it's going to look like when I stitch all the blocks on this dark gingham. This will be the first for me.
Oh, how
So
fun.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it is really fun. It's relaxing. Um, and you and I have talked in the past about how relaxing hand stitching can be in general. And this, what I like about this is that it's easy to see because I do a lot of my hand stitching in the evening. So I do my quilt making work here in my studio during the day. I've got great light, but then at night, it gives me something to do if we're watching a movie or, I can be in other parts of the house little, um, with my little collection of embroidery thread and a needle and my gingham, and I can stitch. And I find that it just sort of calms me down. It's very repetitive, so you're not hyper focused on it's like with cross stitch. My daughter does a lot of cross stitch. I feel like you have to be super hyper focused in those little squares. None of that. Very approachable, and yeah, and really anybody can do it.
Mm,
It's not hard.
mm. It's really nice that it's the materials themselves. All you need is a little bit of the gingham, some thread, a hoop. I guess
Yes.
if you like to work with a hoop, needle thread and scissors, if I haven't mentioned those already. So it's
Hmm.
incredibly portable. And once you, because I think you teach to draw the design down first, which means that you've got that
Hmm.
starting point, which means it takes the thinking away. So like like you say, you can just get going and do a bit here,
Right.
a bit there once you've done the kind of preliminary prep work.
Yeah. You do a little marking, you hoop it up, then you start your movie and you can just stitch away.
And
My
there you
husband,
go.
I drive him crazy because in the evening we I don't know if I mentioned this last year. I don't think we were doing this last year, but we were going through and watching all these 1970s gritty New York City movies that we had not watched back in the 70s. And so every night he'll like go through, pick one. We have a little list going. He'll pick one. And then, of course, I'm inevitably going to say, wait a minute, I've got to get my chicken scratch and I'll run back to the studio. And so he has to wait like, 5, 10, 15 minutes for me to mark it up. But that's all it takes. And then I can come back again. So I'm a broken record.
That sounds like such a lovely way to spend the evening, though. You can be spending time with family and loved ones and doing something, being present in the same room. But you've also, for people who have got like itchy fingers, I say, who always want to be doing something, you've got something that doesn't take a great deal of focus and concentration. So you can be watching the movie or participating in the conversation, whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really love it for that reason, especially.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's lots of fun. I took part in your, was it the sampler course last year?
Yeah. That
Yeah.
was last summer.
Yes, yes. So
Yeah.
I took part in that and of course got halfway through and then got sidetracked, but I've got
I know.
plans.
I know. I know. It's my life story, Kate.
I know, isn't it? Oh dear, as it's going on the to-do list, but we'll get there. And I
We
want to
will.
put it on. I upcycled one of my husband's shirts, which has a gingham in it naturally. And so I'm looking forward to putting a little thing around here.
Oh, nice. Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
And I've put it on, I think last year for Making Zen, I did the pillowcase trim. So just a set of just regular, I had some linen bed pillowcases and I just added a gingham border with just a little stitch on there. Um, yeah, I've added it to, no gingham is safe here ever.
I bet.
No, no gingham is safe here.
And especially when you have the nice gingham, it looks like you have a really nice, good quality with a nice weight, because a lot of the gingham that I'm familiar with is quite light. So it
Yeah.
sounds like you work with a really nice material that's got feel has got presence when you touch it and work with.
Because you really don't need a lot of, your materials to do chicken scratch necessarily. I really believe in, using good thread, using good gingham. I do like yarn dyed gingham over printed gingham. There's a lot of printed ginghams. I just find that stitching on the yarn dyed gingham is so nice. All of my projects that I have on my website and that I will be teaching for Making Zen, it all uses a fat quarter or less, except for the block of the month. That's going to end up being a quilt. But
Mm.
I just believe in, use if you don't need a lot of materials, if you can just find the best that you can use, it makes it so much more satisfying to stitch with. And I do feel like the gingham that I like to use, which is the Robert Kaufman yarn dyed gingham. Um, I do find that I like to use contrasting threads. And so I find that the threads don't show from the back. You don't see the shadowing from the back the way that you would in a thinner gingham
Yeah,
or maybe a printed gingham.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I had no idea you could get printed gingham. Excuse me. I thought it was all woven. So interesting to hear that
I
you.
have seen, yeah. And, a lot of times in my block of the months, they'll try to, upcycle things or, I'm not saying printed ginghams won't work. You just have to experiment a little bit.
Yeah.
So they'll often send a picture. Do you think this will work? I'm always, of the mindset, try it. It's just needle and thread. See what happens. If it doesn't work, darn, you got to stitch that fun little motif one more time.
So true. And
Yeah.
I love that what you're saying, work with the best materials that you can, because I am of the same opinion as well. Like I'm all for upcycling and recycling wherever possible. But sometimes when projects call for specific things, if you use them, they just bring you that little bit of extra joy. It might be the feeling of
Yeah,
how
they
it
do.
feels, or it might be just the way that the thread one runs through the fabric, or like you say, like you don't have that shadowing of the
Hmm.
the thread behind the material, because that's so frustrating.
Yeah. And the
Mm,
finished project is just so satisfying. And um, I agree. Just, I've now started looking at like hand dyed thread, embroidery thread, and variegated thread. And I found like people hand dyeing threads on Etsy. And so I've been experimenting with those and just
mm.
super fun to look through.
Oh, it is. It's a rabbit hole of delight, really, isn't
It
it?
is
Yeah.
silk thread. I've tried silk thread. That was really fun. Um, yeah,
Mm. I haven't
all you
worked
need
with
is like this much.
Yeah, well, that's right. Exactly. I
Hmm.
haven't worked with silk thread before, but I've heard it mentioned a couple of times, so I think it's calling my name.
Yeah, you should try
Mm.
it. It needles really nicely through the gingham.
Does it?
I guess it doesn't, I don't see as large of a color assortment, of course, but they have some beautiful colors. And it's got like a tiny little sheen that the cotton doesn't have. So it just gives you a different look.
Yeah, yeah, pretty luster. Mm. And talking about such things, have you got an example of what you'll be teaching in the Making Zen workshop?
So talking about like along the lines of use the best materials that you can to make a super satisfying project. I have so I'm going to teach us how to make these little needle books,
Oh, so
if you
cute.
can see that. So
Lovely.
this is hand dyed thread that I found on Etsy.
Mm.
And so it's just one color.
Wow.
And then the inside of it is we have some I use a Liberty of London because you only need a tiny little bit. So we've got a pocket on each side
Gorgeous.
and then a little place for your needle. So you can put your thread in your little pocket and then your needles in here. And then you can take it with you. And I mean, I think it's kind of funny, along the lines of what we were talking about. We don't really need a needle book, but how fun is it to like open this up and take everything out and, have it ready to go.
Oh, totally.
So, yeah, so that's what we're going to do. So we'll embroider our name. We'll do the little the chicken scratch motif. There's so many different variations of chicken scratch embroidery, but what I'm going to show us in the workshop is just the basic. Like this is where it starts, and then from here you can sort of take it and go
Mm.
off in whatever direction your heart takes you. So that's what we're going to be making.
I
Yeah,
I can see a lot of those are going to be made for personal use, but also gifts and
it
sharing.
would be a great gift. I know. So I'm teaching my very first in-person workshop in Santa Fe next week. Um, so I've taught in person for many years, but never in Santa Fe. And so I'm really excited about it. So I actually like just when I was figuring out that this was the project I was going to make, I made everybody a little needle book last week.
Did you? Oh,
So
how
yeah,
lovely. Oh,
so they all have a little needle book in there. I was like, I don't know. I was just excited. I needed to express my excitement somehow. So I'm like, everybody gets a needle book.
oh my goodness, that is so delightful. And everybody's going to love getting it too. I mean, such a what
Oh,
a
they're so
thoughtful gift.
cute. Yeah, they're
Yes.
really cute. It's super easy to make. Um, we can recycle felt. I've seen these made with like an old wool sweater. You just cut a big
Mm.
rectangle for your pages.
Nice.
And yeah, so we'll talk about ways that you can reuse what you have as an option.
Mm.
And I mean, I was thinking about like the fact that, we could actually, I bet you we could get enough of the Liberty out of like a Liberty pocket square or something like that to make the little,
Ooh.
you just don't need a whole lot.
Mm.
So
Ah, my goodness. I can see now that you're already planning your list of movies to watch so that you've got lots more stitching to do.
I know we just got Criterion Channel, which has a whole bunch of old movies. So we're going to be we've got lots of movies to watch.
Oh, how
Yeah.
fun. How fun.
Yeah.
I've just started doing a deep dive into like the old 1950s movies. And what was I watching? It was the Audrey Hepburn one in Rome.
Um, oh, I know which one it is, but I can't think of the name.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one.
Was it? For a minute, I was thinking
Holiday,
Gigi, but that's Leslie Caron, right? That's
Roman
not Audrey
Holiday?
Hepburn.
Is it Roman Holiday?
Yes,
Something like
that's what
that?
it is.
Yes, and that was just
Yeah.
so delightful because it's just such a different style of movie to what we're
I
used
know.
to today. It's just very, very pleasant to watch. So you've inspired me
Yeah.
to get a list of things to watch so I can do some chicken scratch
It's
on the
fun.
TV.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I have to remind myself sometime this is actually working, Blair. Like this is actually your job. So you're actually working.
It's quite funny. Mr. Zen is the same. He's like, you never actually stop working. I'm like, I know, but that's because I love it.
You love it. I know.
Yeah, yeah, which is a good thing. So,
It is a good thing.
yeah, if it brings joy and if we can share that joy with others, I mean, it's just a win-win situation, I think.
It is. It
Yeah,
is.
yeah. And you were talking a moment ago about working with special fabrics. And I know last time we connected, you were working on a temperature quilt, which also had special fabrics. I think they were Liberty fabrics
They
too.
were. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did. Yeah. So I fell behind at the end of the year in 2024. I know. I had another project that needed my 100% focus. So now I'm actually spending Saturdays over the past couple months just catching up. So I have 2 months to make. So that's not terrible. I mean, so I'm looking at it on the wall here, but it's Liberty Fabrics. The block itself is 4 inches sewn, and it shows the daily high temperature, the daily low temperature. If we get any kind of precipitation, which is very interesting to observe here in the desert,
Mm.
and then if we have wind that day that's over 15 miles an hour, we have some pretty strong wind here at certain times of the year. So I thought that was kind of fun to record.
Yeah.
Um, and I've loved it. I've had so much fun doing it because um, it's like there's not, I mean, of course I have to think, but I've got all my materials together in a box and I can show you a little block of it if you want to see.
Oh, yes. I'd
But
love to see them.
I've got everything here in a box. So I pull out this box and I've got my chart of
Ooh,
fabrics.
yes.
So it's all Liberty fabrics. And then here's an example of one of the daily blocks. So this represents the daily high, which was 79 degrees Celsius. And then the center stripe was the daily low. So that was 55 degrees Celsius. And then this color right here of Liberty always represents precipitation. So we actually had rain that day. And then this bottom corner is always this fabric if we had wind above 15 miles an hour. So like on this particular day here, we had no wind and no rain. So
Hmm.
it was just the high was 83 degrees Celsius. the low is 49 degrees Celsius.
Wow.
So that's just a simple block.
I noticed you were reading off the back. You've kind of labeled each one. That makes sense.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you can see, like, this is this 19th of September, if you can read that. Whoops.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it just gives the daily high and the daily low. So these are actually foundation paper piece blocks. So I sewed the fabric to the paper, and I decided to do that because I could record everything on the back so
Oh
I
my
could keep
goodness.
track.
That
Yeah.
is so clever.
Yeah. So it's been such a fun project, Kate. I cannot tell you. It's just so nice to have a project that you can just jump into. You don't really have to think about it.
Mm.
It's just a personal project. I don't have to have it done by a certain time. But I think I've got two months left to do, and then I'll put it all together. So I've really enjoyed it. I'm going to do one for this year too,
Oh, really?
but I think it's going to be an embroidered one.
Ooh.
Yeah, just change it up. Totally. Yeah.
Mm. Oh my
Since
goodness.
I'm already behind.
Well, why not?
I know.
Who wants to run out of
Right.
projects?
I know. I mean, the absolute fear that I might.
Yeah, exactly.
I know.
Oh, that's funny. It's like, what is it? Fear of not missing out, but fear of
Fear of running out.
for,
Foro.
FOMO. I love
Or
it.
fear, what is it? Fear of being included is the opposite of fear of missing out or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. Oh my
So
goodness.
yeah, but it's been really fun. I tend to really enjoy printed fabrics over solid fabrics, and so I just sort of decided, why don't I just try it with printed fabrics? And so actually, all of the fabrics are Liberty of London, and they're all colorways of the same print. So I managed to find, I think I needed 21 or 22 different colorways
Oh,
of the
wow.
same print. So it's called Wiltshire, which is one of their classic prints. So they've done a lot of different colorways in it. So I was like, let's just do the same. I was talking to Toby, my cat, when I was doing this. Let's just, that's the plural. And I just thought, well, let's just do like the same colorway. I mean, the same print, and just do different colorways to represent
Mm.
the different temperature ranges. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Good idea. And I'm curious, so you say that you've got some catching up to do. How have you recorded the different temperatures and bits and pieces? Or are you just going to kind of pick it up?
I just do a Google spreadsheet. You can get historical temperatures online. And so I do it for our little area, and just record it on a Google spreadsheet.
Yeah. Oh, that
Yeah.
makes it easier because I thought if you have to like try and dig back through your memories to like, what was the weather like last October the 2nd?
Yeah. I can't rely on my memory. I don't have one.
Yeah, it's good at some things and not others, hey?
No, no. Yes. I know my weaknesses for sure.
That's right. So long as you
Yeah.
remember the important things like birth dates and how to sew chicken scratch, then
Yes, exactly.
yeah,
Then I'm safe.
that's
Everything
right.
else I can write down.
That's right, exactly. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing it come together because I think I might have seen some pictures of it in like sections and the way the
Hmm.
colors were coming together, and particularly, and this is what I love about the fabrics that you're working with because up close they've got quite a lot of detail. But when you look at them, you're standing back and you kind of just see these colorways more.
This flow of, yeah, of
Yeah,
colors.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how
So,
it will all come together. So I can't wait. No pressure.
yeah, I know. Me too. I can't wait either. No, it's definitely worth finishing. It's not one of those projects that will be abandoned at all. I mean, I'm really good at doing that too, but not for this one because I'm really excited to see it through.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
It's interesting because I was thinking you're paying attention to the weather and how high the temperatures are, how low, whether you've got rain and whether you have winds. And so it it's really beautiful because it's capturing a moment in time. And with the what seems to be extreme changes in weather recently, it'll be very curious to see if like 10 years from now or further down the track, your
If
quilt
it's the,
will be an accurate record of what you experienced
yeah,
at the time, which I
yeah,
love. So it's quite a
yeah,
scientific analysis or collection of data as well as
right.
something so
Well, and
tactile.
people do, when I was deciding to do something like this, I researched, on Pinterest and different things, sort of like what people did for their own personal temperature quilts. And a lot of people will do it more as like a personal, uh, journal type thing, like what was the temperature where I was that day? If you travel a lot and things like
Mm,
that, like what was the daily temperature where I lay my head that night, wherever I am. So there's lots of different ways that you could do it. But I think that moving from where I lived before Santa Fe, which was in Seattle, Washington, which is very drippy and gray and um, just a totally different weather system,
mm.
to the high desert where at altitude, I've never in my life had to worry about fires and things like that. This is new for me, and so it's interesting to observe the weather this way, and both daily, as I'm recording the information and making the block, and then also, like you said, looking at it through a month at a time, a year at a time. I think it's been pretty eye-opening to me.
Yeah, it's because it's one of those things you kind of just take it in your stride, or it might be like, oh no, not another day of rain, or oh no, here's more snow, but you don't really kind of like objectively look at what's happening and when and everything.
Right.
So it would be
Yeah.
fascinating to
Yeah.
pay more attention to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's really fun. I've seen temperature quilts done. I saw a beautiful one, not a quilt, but a daily temperature record of a year with beads and things like that. Like, certain colors. Like she lived in California. Water was a precious resource for her in her community, just like it is here. So she recorded rainfall. She didn't have snow, but she recorded it with like a gold bead. So every once in a while you would see like a gold bead, and I just thought that was so pretty. There's so many different ways that you
Mm.
can record something like that. And it'll be interesting to do it as an embroidery project, or, something like that, because, um, will I use the same base cloth? Will I use different base cloths per month? Will I get hand dyed thread? Will I just use solid thread and designate colors for different things? It's kind of fun to work out all of those details in
Yeah.
any of these temperature projects.
And my mind instantly connected the chicken scratch to that project. Is that what you're intending when you say embroidery?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. I just have to work out the details. I have to start a new spreadsheet, Kate.
Oh, watch out.
I know. I know.
Well, I loved seeing all of the collection of the fabric swatches that you had in your book. Like that's such a beautiful tactile resource to refer back to and have as kind of like the working document, I guess, so to speak, of
Yeah.
what to use and what to use next. And
Well, it's just, I had this conversation on Instagram with some folks, I think a week or two ago, about how, I need projects need parameters for me. Like I can't just do 12 different projects at the same time. Inevitably, something won't get done, or I won't like something, and I get hyper focused on what I don't like about that versus like the 11 other projects. And so I like to have um, like physical parameters. Like I need to be able to pull that box out and work on it and then put it back when I'm done. And, I like lots of different printed fabrics and lots of different thread colors and things like that. So in order to give a project my full attention, I have to be able to move everything else to the side. So I have to have things in boxes. And, if it's pretty when I go into the box, that's even more inspiring. It can't always be, but it's nice when it is.
Yeah, totally. And that's really fascinating to hear you say that because I was admiring that you kept it all in a box, which A is great because it keeps it nice and neat and categorized. So you're not like, oh, where did I put that fabric or where's that thread that I'm looking for, which can quite often happen in a less organized studio, not mentioning any names. So I'm like, that's great. Mental note to
We've
self.
all been
Boxes
there.
for
Yeah.
projects.
I recognized years ago, and my pet peeve of myself is when I can't find something like that. I get, and what happens is as I'm looking for it, I get really cranky about the time that I waste looking for things. And so I think that with a lot of hard effort initially, I'd created, a way to keep projects together, but yet inevitably, because we're in business, we work on two or three projects at the same time. I feel that when I think about where I put them and how I put them together, like I feel like having this box with these fabrics folded and ready gives it like a little bit of importance for me. So, it's kind of, it sounds silly, but it's kind of like ritualistic to take the box out, to, put it in the spot and to heat up the iron and, and get the fabrics out and cut the little strips. So that's all part of the creative process for me. I enjoy that, but it took me a long time to get there.
Yeah, and well, it's really nice hearing that because when you do have that ritual, you appreciate it and you enjoy it even more when you know it's all there. Every time you unbox it, it's that joy of, like you say, the beautiful fabrics and the threads. And so it's like a re-experience every time or a new experience every time you open up the box. Not to mention, if you just happen to have to do some stitching in front of the TV or whatever, you can pick it up and away you go and take it with you. So it's very manageable in that sense. You can just take your project on the go.
Yeah, actually, it's coming today in the mail, but I ordered myself a really pretty handmade wooden box to put my chicken scratch stitching in front of the TV because I thought, well, I need something there, and if it could be out and it's pretty, so it's got like the nice joinery around the corners, and I'll just have to slip it in. And then when my husband and I have a joke. It's like whenever we splurge on something and then the other one notices, we're like, this whole thing, oh, this has been here.
Had it
This whole
forever.
thing, this whole box, this has been here. But it makes it sort of it feels special. You feel special doing it. You want to do the best work that you can. You want to enjoy it. And I think that, hand stitching especially does so much for us. It calms us down. It's meditative. It's relaxing. It yields, these adorable little projects. We can also like do something special by making a little special place for us. And this box that I keep my temperature quilt, this is just like a $19 box. I mean, this is just, nothing special. It's got
Mm.
um, a magnetic closure, but it just keeps it closed so that, it doesn't get messed up. Um,
Yeah, doesn't get dusty or cat hair.
yeah, and things get really dusty here. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. I
Yeah.
am curious because one of my things I know is once I put things away, I forget about them. So how do does that happen to you? And if so, how do you navigate that?
It hasn't happened recently. It has definitely happened. But I have four of these boxes and they're all in different colors.
Ah, okay,
So
so
you can
different colors.
see if you can see the pink, the gray, and the blue over there, I actually stack all four of these up over there, and that's where I use the tripod.
Awesome. I love hearing that.
But because they're different colors, I know exactly what's in them. Like the gray one has some old antique ribbon. The pink one has some sashiko, I think. And then the blue one has like little bags that I use when I'm shipping orders out and things. So that helps. And
Mm.
I do try to not keep extraneous supplies and things that I'm not going to use and that I'm not actively working on. I try to not keep those. I try not to leave stacks everywhere,
Mm.
which is something I tend to do. So, talk about the hard work of trying to not stack stuff everywhere. That's been, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
If anybody has any tips on that, let me know.
Absolutely. Please share them with me too, because I'm always
Yeah.
looking for them. And I think because I have such dichotomy, I guess, is a way of describing it. I aspire to clean, minimalist lines and no mess, but yet my studio is very messy, and I don't think I want it too clean anyway, because I find that lots of fun things happen when the projects are left out, and
Yeah.
things automatically kind of like, oh, what happens if I do this from looking at one project to the next and all that kind of stuff. So it's a balance, I think.
Yes.
Me
You
anyway.
kind of need you kind of need that like in your periphery to see and get inspired by it. And I think that's important too. I mean, the thing that I had to realize, and even if it's a project as small as our needle books that we're going to make, if it is a small or large project, it doesn't matter. What I've come to understand about myself is that I thrive creatively in a mess when I am actively working out the details of what a project's going to look like.
Mm.
But I also know that in order for me to feel that it's done, everything needs to be put back in its place, like reset before I start the next thing.
Yeah.
So that was always really difficult for me when I tried to have a more organized space because I was like, it should never be messy. But then I was like, but I like creative messes. I mean, that's when I'm actually working and working through details and things.
Yeah.
So I know exactly what you're saying. I love that little machine behind you.
I
That
think,
is that a featherweight? I've never seen that before. Have you always had that?
I think it may be a year or so.
I love that.
Oh, I love it too. My goodness. It's a
Aren't
dream.
they great?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I can quite happily, I love the sound that it makes and the way it kind of like chunk, chunk, chunk goes through the material. I could just happily stitch all
I
day. Not
know.
fast,
I
but
know.
slowly chunk, 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 chunk.
Yeah. Yeah. Did I tell you the story? We were before we started recording, we were talking about the retreat that I go to in Taos every
Yes,
year.
yes.
And I don't know if I've ever told you the story, but it's 13 women, and it ends up being a lot of the same people every year. And we go to this house in Taos that has rooms for all of us, so we all have our own room. And then we have communal breakfast and dinner in a big dining room, and then we have 24-hour access to a studio. And you can work on, there's no formal instruction. You work on whatever you would like to work on. I usually bring three different types of projects, like one sewing machine, one hand project, maybe, something in between those. But the first time I went, I asked, because, it's a quiet studio. So there's no talking in the studio, which has been agreed to at every retreat when we start. So there's no chit chatting. If you need, so you get really good at miming, like, things like that. Um,
Mm.
and if you have to talk, you go outside and talk. But that is just to allow everybody to really get into their project and things like that. And there's printmakers, there's a mosaic artist, there is just a little bit of everything there, which is really exciting to see. But for the first time I went, which was 3 years ago, I didn't know if it would be acceptable to listen to a sewing machine
Mm.
sewing every day. And when I do off campus sewing, I take my featherweight, which is like that. I take it. And so I said, I asked the facilitator, I'm like, is it okay if I bring it? And she said, why don't you just bring it? I think it'll be fine. But if it's a problem, we'll just discuss it at dinner and, we'll come up with a solution. I'm like, that's fine. And a lot of people will come up with creative, like maybe they sew in their room, if there's space, or they sew outside if the weather's nice. So
Mm.
anyway, I sewed with my featherweight the first day. And then at dinner, when we were all having dinner together, I said, I just wanted to know if everybody's okay with the sound of my sewing machine. And it was so cute. Everybody looked up and they were like, I love it. It's so rhythmic and just like you were saying, it just has this like rhythmic repetition
Mm.
that sort of like our hand sewing. It's just like calm and steady.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. You don't rush it. You just kind of you glide
so
through.
great.
It's kind of a way of
Yeah,
describing it. Yeah. I love
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Blair, I could chat with you all day, but I am so mindful of your time. Like we could literally talk hours, I reckon.
I know. I feel the same. I feel the same.
I'd love to ask you, and I'm sure this is something that would inspire many of our listeners and audience as well, is how do you find your inspiration? Because you've got creativity over here, creativity over there, it's everywhere around you. For someone who might be in like a bit of a creativity lull, what would you recommend people do to get out of that?
You know, there's so many things that I do that I feel that living here in Santa Fe, I have a really creative life. I feel like I've surrounded myself by creative people. The landscape is creative. And but when I lived in Seattle and I felt like, I was raising my children, I was, making family dinner, sometimes you get in a rut and you just feel like, how do I get out of that rut? And I always felt like that if I just did one thing to change up the day, like if I took a walk, or if I, like when I was in Seattle, I would maybe just like go to the Seattle Art Museum or go to the Asian Art Museum and just like make myself get out, even if it was pouring down rain, and do that. And sometimes just changing that one little thing in my day, it just, I might come home and be looking at the same things I was looking at before I left, but I'm approaching them with like eyes that have now rested and taken in something else,
Mm.
and experienced a little something else. And so that would be the one thing that I would recommend to everybody. My daughter, she's such a good example. She works on a lot of personal art projects that she doesn't have time to do at her job. And she will get out of the house and go to the coffee shop and work. And, I was always really hesitant to do that because I want to be in my space and I don't like necessarily people asking me what I'm working on, which inevitably somebody will do. She
Mhm.
doesn't care. And she's an introvert. She doesn't care. And, she's gone to this coffee shop for so long. They actually, like in her coffee drink is so specific. They actually have an Emma button on the cash register.
That's awesome.
But, it's like just get out of your space and take a walk. Or, sometimes I'll just spend like a whole day looking through like home decor books. I love the theater in like high fashion runway shows and things like that. I get a lot of inspiration from that. So I think you just have to kind of change things up, talk with a friend who seems to be like on a creative roll.
Mm.
What's making it tick? What are you feeling inspired by?
Yeah.
If you look for it, I feel like it comes. I don't know how you feel about that, but I feel like it happens.
I loved hearing you say you've created a creative life. So you've got creative friends, you've got an environment which you can walk in and you feel like that gives you inspiration. And so it's kind of coming from all angles. And so I was thinking a way of starting a creative life, if that's something that one aspires to, then joining a creative community is a really good start. And I
Yeah,
do think going out for walks and just kind of changing up our environment, that's so good. It's good for us as a human, but it's also great for the brain and start to the creative juices flowing too.
it is.
Yeah.
And when my kids were little, if they were scared, if they were nervous, if they couldn't get calmed down to go to sleep, or if they were getting ready to do a big presentation as they got older, I would always say take 3 really deep breaths, like from your toes, like as deep as you can. And I find that that can also help me just sort of wake up and look around, a little bit. So
Mm,
maybe it just starts with 3 really big, deep breaths.
great
They
idea.
still do it. They're 26 and 24. They still do it. So
That I think is the best tip because we all forget to breathe from time to time. Like, not that we forget to breathe, but we're so focused on things that a couple of deep breaths just helps us feel grounded again
it
and
does.
brings us back to the present moment.
Yeah, it does.
Such wise words. Well, on that note, I'm so pleased that you're going to be part of Making Zen again, and so excited that you're going to be sharing your chicken scratch needlebook
I
with
am
us.
too. I am too. We're going to have a good time. That's fun.
You bet. Thank you for joining me in this creative journey. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. And if you'd like to learn more about Making Zen, please check out the links below where you can find out all about the workshops and creativity, community, and all that kind of good stuff. Wishing you many happy hours of stitching.